Well, we're two countries bound by shared values and history, but both facing an assault from within as two of the world's freest and fairest nations, losing confidence in ourselves. Or at least that's what the left hopes will happen. Brexit, energy, the values fight and more. I'm delighted to be joined now by author, journalist, former member of the European Parliament and now member of the UK Upper House, Lord Hannan. Dan Hannan, welcome to Credlin. I know you are a regular visitor to Australia. As an outsider, albeit a friend, what do you make of our current tumult over not just the date of our National Day, but a growing reluctance by many of our young people to be positive about our country and its place in the world?
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. It is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, if this is not a good, liberal, democratic and generous country, what is, right? You think of the history of Australia, it's been on the right side again and again. The two world wars, the Cold War, it's been a haven for peace and freedom. And you just have to ask why the in queue is so much longer than the out queue, right? Why are so many people prepared to go to such lengths to come and live here? How must it look to them to see these overprivileged nitwits basically arguing that the world would have been a better place if Anglophone Australia had not come into existence? They really should be embarrassed.
I read with interest a piece you recently published in the London Telegraph. You said you've always been an optimist, but it's hard to be optimistic, perhaps as much as you'd like to be, about Britain anymore. What is it about contemporary Britain that's changed? And give us a sense of what needs to happen to get your optimism back.
Yeah. Well, what changed for me was the lockdown, or to be more precise, the public demand for the lockdowns. When in January 2020 I was reading stories about China closing and quarantining whole cities, I thought to myself, thank God I live in a country where that kind of thing is unthinkable. Boy, did I get that wrong. It was terrifying to see this enthusiasm for the most authoritarian and illiberal policies in the UK, here and pretty much everywhere else in the world, countries which I really thought would be much more dedicated to freedom. And my worry is that isn't going to stop. When governments seize powers on a supposedly contingent basis, they're then very slow to return them after the emergency has passed. And I'm afraid I can see years, even decades, of much bigger and bossier and more intrusive government, not with public tolerance, but with public enthusiasm. I think people, as a result of the lockdowns, are just much more demanding of the smack of firm government than they were. And it's very difficult, really, in that situation, to retain the optimism that I had before.
My audience here will know you as an ardent Brexiteer. I think we're all cheering you on, and everybody else. You got the right result a number of times, actually, multiple votes. But there seems to be this, to coin or use Donald Trump's phrase, the swamp trying to hold back the Brexit gains and certainly the implementation. You look across to Europe and the mess of their energy markets. That's bigger than just the Ukraine war and Russia turning off the gas supply. It's years of going so hard on renewables and other things. And of course, the reluctance of European countries, particularly Germany, to do what's necessary to help the Ukrainians. What's your verdict on all of that?
Well, on Brexit, there is a fundamental dishonesty being pursued by the swampies, or whatever you want to call them, right? And it's that they are deliberately and cynically conflating Brexit with the vast costs of the lockdown, which in most cases they themselves demanded. So, we paid people for the better part of 2 years to stay home, right? Of course, we are a lot worse off as a result of doing that. And yet, the broadcasters and MPs, not just sort of numbskulls on Twitter, but serious people occupying places in public life have the temerity to say, oh, Brexit isn't working very well. Well, actually, do you know what? The UK outgrew the EU economy in 2016, in 2017, in 2018, in 2019. The bad year for us was 2020 because of the lockdown. We were then the fastest growing economy in the G7 in 2021 and 2022. So this isn't a Brexit effect. It's a lockdown effect, and then to some degree a Ukraine effect. And just very quickly on the energy thing. Look, I mean, Some of your viewers will disagree with this. I think the world is warming as a result partly of human activity, although nothing like in the cataclysmic way that is sometimes claimed. Right? But the correct approach, especially if you're a Conservative government, to a problem like that is to do it in as business-like a way as you can, to approach it in a thoughtful, transactional way. What is the best ratio of investment to outcome? Not in a sort of millenarian Greta Thunberg spirit of you know, we're all going to fry, but, you know, what works and what can we afford? And sometimes the timetable should be allowed to slip, right? When the pandemic came, a number of policies had to be correctly put on ice, and I think the war in Ukraine and the consequent energy spike is another example of where some of those timetables should have been put on ice pending the restoration of normal energy markets.
I've got to leave there, Daniel Hannan. I'm a bit out of time, but we could talk to you all night. You are a very welcome visitor in Australia. Thank you for joining us.